Every excuse we make is a lie dressed up to look like reason. It's not truth. It's not logic. It's fear wearing a mask. Excuses sound smart, even responsible. They sound like, now isn't the right time. I don't have the money. I'm not ready. What if I fail? But peel back the layers and you'll find only one thing: avoidance. Avoidance of responsibility. Avoidance of discomfort. Avoidance of the unknown. Every single time you say, I can't, because what you're really saying is, I'm not willing to stretch beyond what's familiar to me. Excuses are the vocabulary of limitation, not because they're accurate, but because they convince you that it's safer to stay stuck than to move forward. The moment you catch yourself justifying your inaction, you've got to confront the real enemy. And that enemy is not your circumstance, not your past, your boss, not your background, not your education, not even your fear. The real enemy is the story you tell yourself to stay small. Excuses are stories, and stories, if told often enough, become beliefs. Beliefs shape perception, and perception is what determines your results. If you believe you're too late, too old, too poor, too damaged, too overwhelmed, or too inexperienced, guess what? You'll prove yourself right every single day. Your brain is wired to support the story you've chosen to believe. So if your story is based on excuses, your life will be a mirror of that fiction. You see, excuses don't show up loud and obvious. They're subtle. They don't scream, they whisper. They come disguised as wisdom. Be patient, they say. Don't rush it. Or think it through just a little more. But there's a difference between preparation and procrastination. A difference between strategy and stalling. If you're constantly researching, constantly preparing, constantly mapping, and never moving, what you've got isn't a plan, it's a prison. Excuses build invisible prisons around your potential. You wake up inside 4 walls you built with your own words. I can't, won't. I don't know how. Maybe later. And here's the dangerous part. Excuses don't always look like failure. Sometimes they look like perfectionism. You delay because you're waiting for the perfect conditions, the perfect timing, the perfect clarity. That's a clever excuse in disguise. It's fear masked as high standards. But life was never meant to be lived in a waiting room. There is no perfect time. There's only time and what you choose to do with it. People spend years on standby, holding off on their dream because the conditions aren't just right. Let me tell you something. If you're waiting for clarity before you move, you'll be waiting forever. Clarity comes after action, not before it. Excuses also love to travel in packs. They don't come alone. One excuse invites another. I'm too tired, please too. I'll do it tomorrow. Which turns into, it's already too late. And then maybe it wasn't meant to be. Before long, the dream that once lit a fire in you is buried under a pile of reasons that sound so rational, so adult, so responsible. But let's not sugarcoat it. Those are lies. The truth is, you were scared. The truth is, you didn't believe in yourself enough to push past the first wave of resistance. The truth is, you let temporary emotions hijack permanent outcomes. And the longer you entertain excuses, the more natural they feel. Like habits, they become automatic. That's why killing excuses isn't a one-time act. It's a daily practice. You've got to slay the lie before it becomes your life. Now let's get honest. What do excuses cost you? They cost you time, which you can never get back. They cost you momentum, which is hard to rebuild. They cost you confidence, because every time you betray your own potential, you trust yourself a little less. Excuses are like termites in the structure of your life. From the outside, everything might look fine. But inside, your dreams are being eaten away by small, daily justifications for why you didn't show up fully, why you didn't give your best, why you didn't take the risk, why you settled for average. Every excuse weakens the foundation of who you're becoming. And let me tell you what else excuses do. They attract company. You'll begin to notice that people who make excuses gravitate toward others who do the same. Misery loves company, but so does mediocrity. And if you're not careful, you'll surround yourself with a chair of people singing the same song. It's too hard. We're doing the best we can. Nobody else is doing it either. They'll support your excuses. They'll validate your story. And together you'll all stay stuck. But not because you had to, because you chose to. Excuses keep you in environments that match your limitations. Kill the excuse, and suddenly the people, places, and patterns that felt normal start to feel toxic because you're not operating on the same frequency anymore. So the question isn't what's stopping you. The question is, what story are you still believing that lets you stay where you are? Your story is either your cage or your key. Excuses are the ink of a self-imposed script that keeps writing the same ending. And the more you repeat that script, the more real it becomes. Not because it's true, but because it's practiced. And what's practiced becomes powerful. If you can practice excuses, you can also practice courage. You can rehearse resilience. You can master forward motion. But it starts by silencing the voice in your head that says, not now. It starts by recognizing that comfort is the enemy of growth and that the most logical sounding reason to stay small is still a lie if it holds you back from your purpose. One committed, yes, can change the entire direction of your life. Not a half-hearted yes. Not a maybe, not a yes, but a real burning, relentless yes. A yes that doesn't need applause, permission, or validation. That kind of yes is power. It doesn't wait for the world to agree. It doesn't negotiate with fear. It doesn't beg doubt to step aside first. A committed yes is a decision, and a real decision means cutting off any other option. That kind of yes is rare, and that's why it changes lives. You see, most people never make a committed yes. They say yes with conditions. Yes, I'll do it if everything lines up. Yes, I'll start if I'm guaranteed success. Yes, I'll go for it, but I need support from my family. That's not a yes. That's a suggestion to the universe, not a command. A committed yes doesn't ask for conditions to be perfect. It declares the outcome and makes conditions irrelevant. When you say yes from a place of certainty, everything around you begins to bend in response. You activate opportunities, relationships, and resources that were invisible when you were still stuck in hesitation. The moment you say yes, not with your mouth, but with your soul, you flip a switch inside of you. You move from wishing to working, from wondering to walking. And the world responds not to your hopes, not to your intentions, but to your energy. That yes becomes a magnetic force. It draws the people, the ideas, the situations that match the frequency of your faith. People underestimate the power of a decision. They wait for life to change so they can feel ready. But life doesn't change before you decide. Life changes because you decide. Think about it. Every breakthrough in history, every invention, every movement or life-altering success started with someone saying yes. Yes to a vision that no one else could see yet. Yes to a calling that scared them. Yes to a dream that sounded ridiculous to others. And the difference between the person who changed their life and the one who stayed stuck wasn't talent. It wasn't money. It wasn't timing. It was one decision. A decision to stop making excuses, stop second guessing, and start moving. That kind of yes will demand everything from you. It won't let you stay in your comfort zone. It won't allow you to sit still. A real yes will push you out of relationships that no longer align. It will break your routines, disturb your patterns, and challenge your identity. It will feel like loss at first, but what you're losing is only what you've outgrown. Because a real yes to your purpose requires a no to your limitations. When you truly say yes, you don't get to bring your excuses with you. You don't get to hold on to your doubts like safety nets. You have to leave the old version of you behind. That version, the one who hesitated, who waited, who played small, is not equipped for the next level of your life. A new life requires a new mindset, and a new mindset begins the moment you say, I'm all in, not halfway, not on weekends, all in. A yes that costs you something is yes that transforms you. This kind of yes is not emotional hype. It's not shouting affirmations while still living in hesitation. It's not starting a project today and quitting by Friday. No, it's an inner contract, a covenant between you and your purpose. A promise to show up when you don't feel like it. A vow to keep walking even when there's no applause, no recognition, and no clear path. That's the kind of yes that births results. Not because it's easy, but because it's anchored in something deeper than emotion. It's anchored in conviction. A committed yes forces alignment. Your habits start to change. Your priorities shift. You start letting go of what no longer serves the person you're becoming. That's when the transformation begins. Because when you say yes with full conviction, you stop negotiating with your old life. You stop explaining yourself to people who can't see your vision. You stop needing reassurance from the crowd. And that's when doors start opening, ones you couldn't have forced open on your own. When you make that yes, life begins to test you, not to break you, but to build you. Resistance will show up, not because you're on the wrong path, but because you're finally moving. Obstacles are proof that the yes was real. If you never face resistance, it means you never left the shore. But once you launch your yes into the unknown, storms will come. And that's okay, because your yes wasn't based on ease. It was based on commitment. And commitment will carry you when motivation can't. People wait their whole lives for a sign, for a guarantee, for some cosmic green light to move forward. But nothing will change until you make that internal shift. That decision, that unshakable yes, the kind of yes that wakes you up early and keeps you up late. The kind of yes that makes fear nervous. The kind of yes that redefines your future. Not because the path will be clear, but because your mind is, your yes gives birth to clarity. It gives birth to direction. It gives birth to power. And it all starts with a moment, one breath, one choice, one yes. Negative emotions have a way of sneaking into your mind like unwanted guests, uninvited but powerful. They show up in the form of fear, doubt, anxiety, anger, shame, guilt, hopelessness, each one wearing the mask of truth. They come with stories. You're not good enough. You'll fail again. Nobody believes in you. You're too late. And because those emotions feel so real, we start to believe their story. But feeling something deeply doesn't make it true. Emotions are not facts. They are signals, temporary energy, feedback, not final verdicts. And yet, people let them drive the whole car. You're not your feelings. That may sound simple, but most people never learn how to separate who they are from what they feel. They feel fear and say, I am afraid. They feel sadness and say, I'm depressed. They feel stuck and say, this is who I am. But you're not fear. You're the one experiencing fear. You're not shame. You're the one who feels shame. You're not your doubt, your worry, or your emotional exhaustion. You are the awareness behind those feelings, the one who can observe, question, and choose differently. But here's the challenge. Negative feelings are loud. They speak with authority. They don't whisper, they shout. And when you don't know how to manage them, you give them the microphone. You make decisions based on temporary emotions and end up with permanent consequences. You stay in jobs you hate, relationships that drain you, routines that shrink you, all because it feels familiar. But not everything that feels safe is good for you. And not everything that feels scary is meant to be avoided. Growth will always feel uncomfortable. That doesn't mean you're not ready. That means you're moving. We were never taught how to feel our emotions without becoming them. As children, we're told, stop crying, don't be angry, cheer up. So we learn to suppress, to fake, to numb, to distract. But repressed emotions don't disappear. They wait and they show up later in your choices, your health, your relationships, your reactions. The key is not to suppress emotions, but to interpret them properly. Just like a warning light in a car doesn't mean the car is broken beyond repair. Your negative feelings don't mean you're broken. They're messages, signals pointing to something deeper. When you start treating emotions like data instead of commands, everything shifts. You stop letting them steer the ship. You start asking, what is this feeling trying to teach me? Maybe that anxiety is telling you've been carrying too much alone. Maybe that fear is inviting you to do something bigger than you've ever done before. Maybe that anger is showing you where your boundaries have been crossed. Emotions aren't enemies, they're messengers. But if you never stop to listen, if you just react to them, you miss the wisdom underneath the pain. Negative emotions only become a problem when you give them control. You feel doubt, and instead of challenging it, you let it stop you. You feel overwhelmed, and instead of prioritizing, you shut down. You feel not good enough, and instead of learning or growing, you pull back. The emotion gets to run your life, and you become a prisoner to a moment that was never meant to define you. But when you sit with it, when you feel it without letting it take over, you gain something powerful. Emotional mastery. That's not suppression. That's not pretending you're fine. That's choosing how you respond instead of being driven by the storm. Too many people think strength means not feeling. But real strength is feeling everything and still choosing to move forward. It's being afraid and still making the call. It's feeling inadequate and still applying for the opportunity. It's waking up with a heavy heart and still showing up for yourself. Emotional maturity doesn't mean you don't feel negative emotions. It means you've learned not to worship them. You've learned to feel and move at the same time. There will be days when you wake up and don't feel motivated, don't feel confident, don't feel clear. But feelings are fluid. If you make every decision based on how you feel in the moment, you'll never build consistency. Some days, you'll have to act without permission from your emotions. That's the difference between average and exceptional. Average people wait to feel ready. Exceptional people act from commitment, not emotion. They let the mission dictate their motion, not their mood. You are not weak because you feel fear. You are not broken because you have anxiety. You are human. What defines your strength is what you do with those feelings. Do you let them hold you hostage? Or do you acknowledge them and keep walking? Do you wait for them to disappear before you start living? Or do you learn to lead yourself through them? The mind loves to replay every fear-based scenario it can imagine. It plays back every past failure like a highlight reel. But the problem isn't that those memories exist. The problem is that you believe them more than you believe your potential. You've been rehearsing doubt for so long it feels familiar. But familiarity is not truth. It's just repetition. So you have to choose what you rehearse. You can rehearse your fears or you can rehearse your future. You can rehearse every reason why it might not work, or you can rehearse what it looks like when it does. Negative emotions will visit. They're part of the journey. But they don't get to stay unless you invite them to live with you. Acknowledge them, learn from them, and then lead yourself beyond them. That's how you shift. That's how you take your power back, not by avoiding feelings, but by owning your ability to rise above them The moment you stop making excuses, you take ownership of your life. The death of excuses is the birth of responsibility, and that birth is rarely comfortable. It's not about blame. It's about power. Responsibility doesn't mean everything is your fault. It means everything is your move. It means you no longer wait for someone to come save you, fix you, or hand you permission to move forward. Responsibility says, I may not have caused this, but I'm still responsible for how I respond. That response is where your power begins. As long as you make excuses, you hand over the pen that writes your story. You let the past write it. You let other people write it. You let pain, fear, and insecurity write it. Excuses become invisible authors of your life, scripting the same chapters over and over while convincing you there's no other way. But the truth is, there is always another way, always the next move. But you will never see it if you believe the lie that says, I can't because that phrase is a trap. Every time you say it, you reinforce the idea that your circumstances are bigger than your capacity. And that is a dangerous belief to live by. When you kill excuses, you are forced to look inward. And that's hard. Excuses are comfortable because they let us focus on what's outside of us. The system, the economy, the timing, the people who didn't support us, the break we didn't get. As long as we're focused outward, we don't have to confront what's within. We don't have to look at our lack of discipline, our fear of failure, our resistance to change, our addiction to comfort. But when the excuses die, the truth comes out. And that truth is often simple and brutal. We haven't fully committed. Full commitment is terrifying because it eliminates hiding places. When you take full responsibility, you can't hide behind, I tried, or I wanted to, I meant to. Results don't care about intentions. Life responds to execution. And execution only happens when you stop waiting for perfect conditions and start building with what you've got. You can have reasons or results, but not both. Responsibility means you don't get to blame your environment. You don't get to blame your upbringing. You don't get to blame your personality type or your zodiac sign or your friend group. Yes, those things shape you, but they do not define you. Responsibility says, I may not have built this cage, but I'm the one keeping myself in it. That realization is both painful and liberating. Painful because you can no longer outsource the problem. Liberating because if you're the problem, you're also the solution. And here's something most people don't want to admit: excuses feel good. They give you relief. They let you off the hook. They make you feel safe. If something didn't work out, it's not because it didn't show up fully. It's because of the excuse. If you didn't apply, try, risk, comment, speak up, or finish, it wasn't because you lacked courage. It was because of the excuse. It's a self-solving mechanism. But relief isn't growth. Comfort is not transformation. And safety doesn't build legacies. You've got to ask yourself, what am I protecting when I make excuses? What am I avoiding? What do I fear will happen if I stop blaming and start building? Because the truth is, the moment you take responsibility, the moment you stop pointing fingers and start looking in the mirror, the moment you say, this is mine to fix, that's when things begin to shift. That's when life starts responding differently. That's when you stop living in reaction and start living on purpose. And responsibility isn't just about owning your failures. It's also about owning your power. It's about realizing that you have more say in your future than you've been willing to admit. People think responsibility is a burden. It's not. It's freedom. Because when you accept that you are responsible for your decisions, your energy, your habits, your direction, nobody can manipulate you with guilt. Nobody can stop your progress with opinions. You become untouchable, not because life gets easier, but because you stop waiting for ease to move. You can measure your success by how willing you are to take ownership. Are you willing to say, I created this? Are you willing to say, I chose this path, even when the path is difficult? Are you willing to admit that nobody owes you anything and that everything you're waiting for is already within your reach? If you're bold enough to claim it, because excuses let you pretend. Responsibility forces you to act, and action is what creates results. Responsibility sharpens your vision. When you're no longer blinded by blame, you can actually see solutions. You can identify patterns. You can course correct faster. You no longer waste time defending your limitations. You start investing time in building your next level. The shift is internal, but the results are external. People will wonder how you got so focused, how you became so consistent, how you managed to change your life. And the answer won't be a hack or a shortcut. The answer will be, I stopped making excuses. I took full responsibility. I made it my job to change. Every excuse you've ever used has kept you safe, but it's also kept you stuck. Excuses create the illusion of progress without any movement. They give you a sense of control while silently stealing your power. But the day you decide you're done with that, the day you stand up and say, I'm responsible, everything begins to move, not because the world changes overnight, but because you do. You start showing up different. You stop settling. You stop asking for permission. You stop needing perfect conditions to make imperfect progress. You become the kind of person who makes things happen. Not because it's easy, but because it's yours to do. You can't change what you tolerate. You can't rise above what you continue to accept in your life. At some point, you've got to get fed up with your own limitations, fed up with your procrastination, fed up with your excuses, fed up with going in circles, fed up with settling for less than you know you're capable of, until you hit that breaking point where the pain of staying the same is finally louder than the fear of change. You will remain exactly where you are, dressed in potential, but living in patterns. You can read every book, attend every seminar, take every course, but until you decide you're done living beneath your potential, nothing shifts. There's a point where you have to stop asking for permission to grow. You have to stop waiting for someone to come validate your dreams or sign your calling. That moment of transformation doesn't come when someone gives you the green light. It comes when you finally say, enough. Enough of shrinking. Enough of doubting. Enough of waiting. That decision, raw, personal, and often silent, is the spark that changes the entire trajectory of your life. Because when you finally get sick of your own nonsense, you unlock a new level of power. See, people don't change when they're comfortable. They change when comfort becomes a prison. They change when what used to soothe them now suffocates them. That moment when you're standing in a room you've outgrown, looking at a life that no longer fits. And you realize it's nobody else's job to fix it. That's when the shift begins. Because no change is sustainable until the standard changes. You can't keep trying to build a new life with the same mindset that built the old one. Your results will always rise to meet your standards. Raise the standard and the results follow. You don't rise by chance. You rise by choice. You rise because you stop tolerating the version of you that kept playing small. You rise because you stopped feeding fear and started feeding purpose. You rise because you realize that your dreams aren't waiting on divine timing. They're waiting on your discipline. The version of you that changes your life isn't more gifted or more lucky. It's simply more committed, more consistent, more deliberate. The version of you that shifts the atmosphere is the one who shows up whether it feels good or not. You've got to get tired of the loop of starting and stopping, the loop of promising and pausing, The loop of inspiration with no execution. That loop will keep you busy but unfulfilled. It'll keep you active but stuck. You'll be working hard but never truly moving forward. Why? Because you haven't made the internal decision that says, I'm not going back. I'm not negotiating with mediocrity. I'm not apologizing for wanting more. That's the decision that ends cycles. That's the decision that breaks generational patterns. That's the decision that scares your comfort zone but awakens your purpose. This is where most people get stuck. They try to change their life without changing themselves. They want the outcome without the identity shift. But you don't get the breakthrough until you become the person who can handle it. You don't keep the blessing if you're still thinking like the version of you that was begging for it. Change isn't something you visit. It's someone you become. You've got to embody the result before it ever shows up in your reality. And that means letting go of habits that no longer serve you, conversations that drain you, environments that don't grow you, mindsets that limit you. It's easy to say you want more. It's easy to talk about vision, but the cost of vision is often discipline, discomfort, and detachment from who you've been. That cost is what stops most people. They want the reward, but they're not willing to let go of the routine. They want transformation, but they cling to old identities. That won't work. You can't take old behaviors into a new future. You've got to burn the bridge, burn the plan B. Burn the script that says, this is just how I am. No, it's how you were. It's what you learned. But you're allowed to unlearn. You're upgrade. You're allowed to evolve. You can't heal in the same environment that hurt you. And you can't grow while still protecting your limitations. At some point, you have to stop romanticizing your struggle and start aligning with your strength. The journey is hard. Yes, the process is real, but so is your power. So is your potential. So is your ability to choose differently. And choice is everything. Every day, you're either choosing comfort or calling. Fear or faith, excuses or execution. One leads to regret. The other leads to results. Change doesn't come from more information. It comes from implementation. It comes from relentless, messy, imperfect, consistent action. It comes from waking up the days you feel defeated and still deciding, I'm not going back. It comes from silencing the voice that says, you're not ready, and answering with action anyway. It comes from stopping yourself in the middle of an old pattern and saying, not this time. That's how it starts. One choice, one shift, one moment of clarity that says, I'm not available for this version of me anymore. Every breakthrough starts with a breaking point. And that breaking point is often internal. It's that moment when the story you've been telling yourself no longer works. When the excuses feel hollow. When the self-sabotage becomes obvious. When the illusion of comfort cracks and you finally see that what's safe is actually killing your spirit. That's when it happens. That's when you move. Not because you were forced to, but because you finally realized you don't have to stay there. You never did. You were just tolerating what you could have changed. Now you know better. Now it's time to become better. The words you speak shape the world you live in. Language is not just sound, it's structure. It's the blueprint that your subconscious uses to build your reality. Every sentence you say out loud, every phrase you repeat in your mind, every label you place on yourself, all of it is a command, a declaration, a seed. And what you consistently say, you eventually start to believe. And what you believe, you act on. And what you act on creates the results you live with. That's why you've got to stop speaking death over your own life. You've got to stop saying things like, I'm always like this, or I never get it right. I can't do that. That's not just negativity, it's activity. And the more you repeat it, the more your nervous system accepts it as truth. Your words are either building your future or burying it. Every time you open your mouth, you're casting a vote for the kind of life you want. Are you reinforcing your excuses or are you reinforcing your power? Are you rehearsing your limits or are you rehearsing your possibilities? Too many people keep their dreams private and their doubts public. They talk more about what's going wrong than what could go right. They tell stories that confirm their fears, not their faith. And they wonder why their lives feel small. It's because their language is small. And you can't live a big life with small language. You've got to get serious about your self-talk. Pay attention to the background noise of your mind. That inner dialogue when no one else is listening. That's where your real beliefs live. That's where the battle is won or lost. It's not enough to post affirmations online if the voice in your head is full of contradiction. You can't say, I'm confident in the morning and then whisper, I hope they like me all day. You can't declare, I'm successful while constantly complaining about what you lack. That's not alignment. That's internal confusion. And when your mind is confused, your results reflect that. So many people are fluent in the language of limitation. They speak it without thinking. I'm just not good at that. That's not who I am. It's too late for me. People like me don't win. These aren't just harmless statements. They're agreements. Agreements with fear. Agreements with failure. Agreements with defeat. And the problem with agreements is that they come with contracts. When you agree to smallness, you start living small. When you agree with insecurity, you start making insecure choices. You have to learn to cancel the contract. Refuse the agreement. Revoke the license you've given to that old language that no longer serves who you're becoming. Start declaring what you want even before it shows up. Start affirming your identity even while you're still becoming it. That's not delusion. That's design. That's vision. That's how you speak life into dry places. That's how you turn chaos into clarity. You speak what's true in the spirit until it becomes true in the physical. You don't just describe your life. You decide your life with the words you use. Your voice is a steering wheel. And every phrase you repeat is either turning you toward the life you want or away from it. The shift starts when you stop repeating what the world says about you and start repeating what you want to believe about yourself. Maybe nobody believed in you before. Maybe nobody spoke life into you. But you don't need their permission to start now. You can speak power even in the middle of pain. You can speak progress even while walking through problems. You can speak abundance even while facing lack. That's the power of language. It creates possibility. It ignites movement. It reprograms your perception so you start looking for alignment instead of affirmation. Don't wait until you feel confident to speak confident. Speak until confidence becomes familiar. Don't wait until everything is perfect to say, I'm ready. Speak readiness until your nervous system catches up. That's how you train your mind. That's how you rewire your beliefs. Speak what's coming, not just what is. Say it until it feels natural, until it stops sounding like a stretch and starts sounding like your standard. And don't just speak it once. Repetition is what rewires the brain. You didn't learn to think small in a day. You practiced it. Over and over, you heard it, spoke it, believed it, and lived it. Now, you need to practice something new. Say it when you wake up. Say it when you don't feel it. Say it when you fail. Say it when you succeed. Your words should be so consistent, your subconscious starts believing this is who we are now. This isn't about hype. It's not about pretending your problems don't exist. It's about refusing to give those problems more power than your purpose. Your words can either magnify your obstacles or magnify your options. They can either amplify fear or ignite faith. And if you want to transform your reality, it starts with transforming your vocabulary. Shift what you say and you'll shift what you see. Speak with intention. Speak with power. Speak like someone who knows the future listens, because it does. The question is, what are you telling it to prepare for?